We're going to go right into Russ Pagan, something that he definitely wants to talk about. He sent me an email. He is an information system technologist. He's a musician. He's a filmmaker and an independent political commentator in Los Angeles. This is great. A lot of my guests are from L.A., where I used to live. Russ, thank you so much for holding on. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Monte. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much. Let's get right into it. We have about 20 minutes. The good news is, before we talk about gun violence, is you rarely, if ever, see a unanimous poll like this. The new Quinnipiac poll shows 95% of Americans are in favor of universal background checks. It's the highest percentage ever. So, gun reform, maybe it's coming on. I want to throw a couple stats at you before we get to the questions. In my opinion, I don't think any civilian should have a militarized weapons. That's just me, okay? In 1982, 7 people were killed by Tylenol being tampered with. Now we have precautions on aspirin. In 2001, a shoe bomber tried to blow up an airplane. We all have to take off our shoes now before we go on a plane. Since 1968, people, since 1968, 1,516,816 people have died on American soil from gun violence. Russ, America has a huge gun problem, which is the understatement of the year. 74 people per day die for guns. Double that are injured. And it's only getting worse because one of Trump's first executive orders was to overturn the Obama rule. People with mental illness and history of domestic violence can now acquire guns. We've seen this in the last 2 shootings. Please talk about this.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Trump is, a big supporter of the NRA, and they've given it reported before. So I don't know that there is going to be any movement on that. But I'm in complete agreement. I'm one of that 95% of Americans that actually thinks that people, we should know that a person, is not crazy or doesn't have a criminal history. And a background check isn't going to be, a perfect solution. But if there is a background check for every gun sale, at least, we can say that we tried to vet each person before they got a hold of a gun. So it's very big. And the only reason we don't have those universal background checks is the NRA. They are the only thing standing in the way, which is why I think that the NRA is they're basically betraying their own members because they don't support what the members of the group actually want. But they're also they're betraying their members because we could instead say, okay, look, we want universal background checks. Everybody wants it. So let's go ahead and do that. And in exchange for that, let's not ban things like assault rifles. And we can get into that more because I know that you have your opinion on that. And mine differs slightly. But the NRA is betraying its members because we could be bargaining that universal background check for something else that makes more sense. And both sides would win.
That's a great point. And going back to that, you can be on the FBI no-fly list, meaning the FBI doesn't want you to leave the country, and you could still legally get a gun. ISIS is encouraging cells here in America to take advantage of our lapsed gun laws. So basically, ISIS is buying guns in America, cells here. The NRA is basically giving guns to ISIS as long as they have money to pay for them.
Right. And, those bump stocks are still legal, so I'm sure that every ISIS member who's buying a gun in the United States is getting a bump stock along with it to make it more deadly. So, this is a big problem. And the Republicans, it's so frustrating. The Republican politicians, when you mention this, they say, well, there's people on the list that maybe shouldn't be, and there's all this ambiguity with it. Well, we can clean up the list. We can clean that up. They just use it as a dodge, like, oh, we can't do anything. There's something blocking us, so we can do nothing. And that's really not the case. We can clean up that no-fly list, make sure that people who are on it are supposed to be on it, and, move forward with actually doing something that's going to make people safer.
Now, the doctors in Vegas shooting said it felt like he was in a war zone. Again, I don't think militarized weapons should be in the hands of civilians. Talk about what guns, if any, should be banned.
All right, so the person in Las Vegas had an AR-15, but he had that device called the bump stock. that turned it essentially into a fully automatic weapon that could fire almost as rapidly. And that's what made his assault so deadly. So the AR-15 itself is a weapon that hunters do sometimes use. People who hunt feral pigs at a feeding trough will sometimes use an AR-15 because it's a good way to bag as many of those pigs as they want to get. So if you do ban an AR-15, that's step one. You're taking a gun away from a person who has a legitimate need for one. And you know what? There's a legitimate need to use it to protect yourself as well against other people. And, you know, I'm a Boy Scout, and of course everybody knows that one of their laws is that you should always be prepared. And so I always think about things like what could happen? Where might I be in a situation where I might need a gun? If a meteorite strikes the planet, it could knock power out for months at a time or years at a time. I do not wish to be at the mercy of, marauding gangs who are going to take over. If there's
Russ,
lights are out.
You just said you're a Boy Scout, and in the same sentence, you're talking about a meteor and the apocalypse with your gun. Have we fallen off the rails here?
It's going. Yeah, your mind is stretching to think of this stuff, but there's a million things that could happen. There could be a bus load of hardened criminals that are getting transported, just like Con Air, and the bus crashes, and
right.
all these criminals are let loose in your neighborhood. I mean, you don't know what could potentially happen. But especially, if you've got a wife and some kids, you need to protect them. And considering that you really don't know what could potentially happen in any situation, I think people they want to be prepared. I'm one of those people that wants to be prepared. And my AR-15, it has never killed anybody.
No, Russ, I'm all for that. As a matter of fact, I'm in Florida now. I'm probably going to buy a gun within the next 3 to 6 months. I'm going to take gun classes. I am all for people buying guns. What I'm not for is to buy killing machines. Like, I'll give you a great example. Japan has had less than 5 gun deaths over the past year. Australia several years ago had a mass shooting. They banned certain guns. They haven't done it. My philosophy has always been, and it's just common sense, the more guns on the street, the more people are going to use them.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of guns. And if you look at Canada, they have about the same amount of guns as we have, but they have far fewer gun deaths. So I think it goes back to background checks and other measures more than the weapons themselves. And an AR-15, it looks like a gnarly assault rifle. It looks just like the weapons that our GIs carry into battle. But it's really functionally no more different than a deer rifle that your uncle uses to go hunt deer. They both operate in the same manner.
I am all for people having guns. And it's something that we don't have in this country. And it's the dumbing down of America. You talk about the apocalypse. I mean, we are so damn stupid in this country. We don't use common sense. Again, the right says, the liberals want to ban guns. I don't want to ban guns. The Second Amendment, fine. I don't want to change it. All I want is I don't want to wake up every day or every other day and see people getting killed by these maniacs, history of domestic violence, people who are getting escaping from military prison. I don't want to see that because sooner or later, one of my friends is going to get killed from a gun.
Yeah, and some other things that can help is, this is what I think would be awesome, and I don't know if it could ever possibly happen, but if the NRA could stop being a friggin' gun manufacturing lobbyist group and instead be an actual gun rights, advocate, that would be a huge thing. And right now, people don't want background checks. Some of them, the people that argue against it, and they argue against other measures because they're afraid the government is going to have a list of everybody who is a gun owner. And if that happens, they're afraid that the government is then going to say, we want to get rid of all guns. So now that we know who all of you are, we're coming around to your house to collect them. But if the NRA kind of was a middleman to manage that stuff, that they could register people so that, one of the things that Democrats wanted to do was to have background checks for when you just buy ammo. They actually passed that in California. or they try to. I have to check to see if it even passed. But that's one thing that would help. Like, so you've already got a gun. Maybe your father or grandfather gifted it to you, but now you want to do something dastardly with that weapon. You go to buy the ammo, and you're hit with that background check. Well, that's going to frustrate a lot of gun owners. They don't want it. But the NRA could keep this information, say, okay, you've cleared your background check. You don't need to go through another one. We're going to kind of streamline you through the process, kind of like TSA pre-check. That's what the NRA role should be, I feel.
I agree with you. If the NRA was just smart and not just wanting this to be like a used car salesman and sell you that crappy car, if the NRA was smart, they say, hey, we're going to have comprehensive background checks. We don't want innocent people getting killed. We're going to clean this up. We're not taking anyone's guns away, but if you have a history of mental illness, and then show some sort of empathy, show some sort of compassion, because the people who are doing these mass shootings all have a history of violence, all have problems. Yeah. Now, Russ, we have I'm going to give you 3 minutes right now. I wish we had more time. We're definitely going to get you back on. But I know you wanted to talk about finance rules, voting, etc. I said in my opening, 75%, it's probably more, of all candidates who raise more money win their election. So real quick, talk about this. I think there should be a cap, like in sports, like, you can only spend $40 million on your team. I think there should be a cap when it comes to candidates spending money on their campaigns.
I think that would be a good start or a step in the right direction, but also as a citizen, or as citizens, we are the owners of this country, and I think we lose sight of that every single day. And we have the right to tell our politicians how it's going to be, what we want. And I don't feel that politicians really should spend any money or that they should raise any money. There was an idea floated a while back that for $6 a year per tax-paying citizen, we could actually have public-financed elections. And then instead of politicians being bought and sold, to work against our interests, we would have free elections that are actually open and, are not just littered with dirty money and corrupted with dirty money. So I think that there should be no campaign financing or no donations from corporations. There's a lot of different ways you could go about it, but I don't think that we need to have any money in politics at all. I think it can be completely gotten rid of. We own the airwaves that politicians use to play their political ads. So, and we give that to the media for free, and they make money off it. I think that, we could work through the FCC that says, look, you want a broadcast license, you have to play all of your political ads for free and not take a dime for it. And
yeah, listen, like I said, it's come to the point where whoever spends the most money usually wins.
And then once they're in, they get more money. It's a self-perpetuating cycle of ridiculousness. So we have to come up with a solution. And to me, it's a lot more important than any of the left-right battles that kind of go on. You had Jennifer on. She did great, and I concur with all your sentiments about her work and her reporting. She was awesome. And we definitely need to have those hand-counted ballots, paper ballots, because if we can't if we can't be completely sure of who's being supported in our elections and who's not, then we don't have the power as citizens that we should have.
Well, going along those lines, you watch the Dakota Access Pipeline, and Native Americans and everyone was protesting it. Donald Trump pushed it through despite the warnings. We just found out before it came on air, 210,000 gallons have spilled in South Dakota, and that is going to wreck their state, that is going to wreck cities, that is going to wreak havoc on the ecosystem, and this is exactly what you're talking about. We have the power as citizens, and people, I say this all the time, 48% of America didn't vote, so if you didn't vote, you're part of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to get everybody voting and everybody engaged in what's going on. I don't know how you make that happen, but I think Trump actually being there may do it to some degree. He may actually get people more interested in what's going on.
Well, they better get interested because They better get interested, because if not, we're going to be We're going to be Cuba when Castro take over. It's going to be the ultimate dictatorship. We're going to be in the 1950s and 60s. Finally, we have about 45 seconds. Just give me a yes or no and a quick explanation. Does Trump get impeached?
I think yes, but yeah, I think he's too reckless and crazy not to. However, I'm sure he'll step down once we get there. He doesn't want to go to prison, which is where he would end up.
So you think he'll be the cowardly man and say, my health or something like that?
Right. Yep.
By the way, I don't know if you've seen him. I don't know if you've seen him lately, but he's one cheeseburger away from a coronary. The man is getting fat. When I watch him on TV, I could hear him getting fatter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, every president runs, every president works out. He needs to take care of himself. Russ, love having you on. We didn't have enough time, but we're going to have you on again. Tell people anything, how they can follow you, where they can see some of your work.
Okay, reclaimingorbirthright.blogspot.com is my blog page. And I don't update it frequently at the moment, or haven't been, but I'll probably get back around to it. There's a lot of great articles on there, kind of about what we talked about, how you get to the root of corruption. An idea I came up with was a contemporary Continental Congress, or, basically modeling some body after the Continental Congress that was used to draft our Constitution, and have that body come up with ways of getting rid of corruption. And then tell Congress, hey, vote for this, and if not, the people might get pissed and just vote you out. And,
Russ, you said something about 5 minutes ago. You said, we have the power to tell Congress what to do. And you said, people don't realize that.
Yeah. We lose sight of the fact that we are supposed to be in control. I do a little bit of political cartooning also, and one of my favorites is the founder's vision, which was the citizen riding a wagon with the parties pulling it. And what we've turned into is the parties riding in the wagon, the citizens are pushing it, and we're getting crapped on by the two political parties.
Like slaves. Do me a favor, Russ. Any information you have, email it to me on Facebook, and I'll put it on my Twitter page. And thank you so much for coming on.
Sounds great, Monte. Talk to you later.
Thanks so much. That was Russ Pagan. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed this show with Jennifer and Russ.